Hi, I'm Charles Purcell. This is the log for Friday, August 28th. Final night, last night, of the Republican National Convention. So we're going to cram in the last two nights, review Wednesday and Thursday. Right off the bat, I didn't see all four nights of the invocation. That's usually the first thing they do. But I did see a couple of them. Dolan, Archbishop or whatever he is, Timothy Dolan, had the Statue of Liberty over his left shoulder as he gave the invocation. And then I think it was on Wednesday night. Yeah, we're talking about Wednesday right now. Whoever the guy was, I wasn't sure who he was. He had a big old flag. And that's where it gets really creepy and weird and, autocracy and fascism. And when you're combining religion and the state in such a blatant and callous way, that was weird and gross and cringy. So there's that. Just my little thought. The word heritage was used many times over the four nights. And of course, you know what that means. Heritage is code. Heritage is code for, altogether, white supremacy. White supremacy, of course. And a lot of speakers pulled out that little code word, heritage. And I bring it up here. It's in my notes because the clergyman used it and used it definitely in that context. So again, very cringy, very gross and scary. Kristi Noem, South Dakota governor, a little mini Trump. She loves the Trumpster. She tossed in a little Second Amendment talk, and the founders gave us that right so we could defend ourselves against the standing army. Do yourself a little bit of research. That is an arch-conservative trope that's just a lie. That was never the intention of the founders, was for people to take up arms against the standing army. No. At some point, maybe we'll talk about that. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole tonight. But I just found it interesting that she decided to toss that one out, that little lie. Kristi Noem also invoked for the first time, and other speakers did, invoked Martin Luther King. That takes a hell of a lot of nerve. We are the party of Martin Luther King. If I have any conservative listeners, if I have any Republican listeners, and I'm sure I do, you don't want to admit it. But yeah, if you invoke Martin Luther King, if you think MLK would be on your side today, you need to do a little history reading. What else happened? I noticed on Wednesday night, I had a lot of, in my notes, what I would call, what? Moments. Kayleigh McEnany, the press secretary, the spokesperson, we see her up there at the podium lying every day. She just launched into this very, very personal story about her own breast cancer. Well, she didn't have it, but it's in her family, so she got the preventative mastectomy. And she gets into this very personal story, but I'm not sure why. And then somehow she kind of loosely relates this to the president. And it turns out Kayleigh loves her daughter. That's good. And that's why she works for the president. What? It didn't make any sense at all. It made no sense at all. It was definitely an what moment. We got a lot of sports personalities. Lou Holtz came out, college and NFL coach and famous crackpot. He came out with some weird little halftime pep talk about having pride in yourself. Another what moment. The first time of Wednesday night that it got really disturbing. That's when Michael McHale came out. He's the president of the National Association of Police Organizations. First of many blue line guys coming out with this one with bogus claims on crime statistics. He had all sorts of very strange things to say about New York that just weren't true. But yeah, the whole thing about police unions and what we've learned about them. I know I've learned a lot about police unions this summer. And they're a scary bunch. For those of us lefties who are all pro-union, we've learned a lot about police unions. They're not like any other union. They are fraternities is what they are. And there's the whole blue line thing and the whole code. It's kind of weird and scary. And, of course, they've all endorsed, or many of the big ones have endorsed, the Orange Menace. And, that was a very cringy moment for the night, among many. Another sports guy, lots of sports guys. Jack Brewer, who I don't know, but a former NFL player, and a servant to God. That's how he introduced himself. I'm a former NFL player and servant to God. All right. He actually used the phrase "all lives matter," which was not cool. He lied about Black Lives Matter. There's a favorite lie going around that right on the Black Lives Matter website, they say they want to abolish the nuclear family. This is a very popular lie. You're going to hear this one a lot. They want to abolish the nuclear family. If you hear that, it's just a blatant lie. Where they get it from a little passage. I don't have it in front of me right now. They do sort of contend that the definition of family shouldn't be limited to the nuclear family. They're just basically saying that everyone deserves the same love and respect. It's a very innocuous, sweet little passage about how everyone deserves love and respect, and we shouldn't only define acceptable people as the traditional nuclear family. So from that sweet little, very positive passage, opponents have kind of invented this little meme, this little trope that Black Lives Matter wants to abolish the nuclear family, and always as part of their argument, they say, it's part of their official proclamation right on the front page of their website. So if you hear that, that's where that comes from. Another former NFL player, Burgess Owens, just tons of them. This guy's a candidate for Congress in Utah. And so many, we mentioned this yesterday, so many black speakers, just crazy the number. Every possible black Republican in the country spoke the last 4 nights. And just a little side note here, they're not going after the black vote. That's a lost cause. The reason they're putting so many black faces in front of the camera, that's so white folks can vote for the Orange Menace without feeling guilty. I guess I'm not that racist after all. See, I'm not a racist. Look at all the black folks. It's just this little guilt be gone. Apply a little guilt be gone, and there you go. Now you got some of your white suburban voters back, especially those highly coveted white suburban women, or white suburban housewives, as the Orange Menace calls them. Yeah, that's what all the black voices and all the black faces are about. That's to attract white voters who want to be sanitized. They want to tell themselves, no, I'm not racist. It's okay. I can vote for Trump. That's what that's all about. Oh, and then we talked about that one speaker that had to be canceled at the last minute because she tweeted some weird anti-Semitic QAnon conspiracy theory. So they had to cancel her. And she was going to tell a terrible story about how an illegal immigrant killed someone in their family. And I talked about this yesterday, how this is the most vile thing they do. They take anecdotal stories, immigrants who've done bad things, and then they paint all immigrants with that brush. And it's the absolute epitome of the worst kind of bigotry and completely unfair guilt by association, harassing, belittling, vilifying an entire class of people. And somebody named, let's see, it doesn't matter, I guess. I guess his wife was a victim of a shooting. And so they put this poor guy on to tell his horrible, sad story about how his wife was brutally murdered. But they use it to advance their anti-immigration agenda. Just really, of all the terrible things they do, that's the one that really gets me the most. I just hate it when they do that. By the way, I didn't know this yesterday. At least maybe I'd forgotten it, or I don't know. But I checked a little further into it today. We've talked about this criminal justice reform the Orange Menace signed, and they're putting it out front, talking about it several times every night as one of his great achievements. Turned out he didn't like the bill at all, didn't want to do it. He had to be talked into it. He had to really be convinced. I guess Jared and Ivanka wanted it. And I guess they lobbied Fox News to be in favor of this bill, this criminal justice reform bill. And that's how they eventually got the Orange Menace to sign it. Ivanka and Fox News talked him into it when he was against it. Now they hold it up as his great achievement, as though it was his idea and he brought everybody into a room and he wrote the thing himself late into the night. All right, so then we get to the big moment of Wednesday night, and that is your buddy, Mike Pence, his brow firmly furrowed the whole time. And this was live, a couple of hundred people at least in the Rose Garden. No masks, no social distancing. And he just delivered all the regular stuff you'd expect, all the lies and everything. But one line that he really emphasized, and several other speakers also mentioned what the Orange Menace is like when the cameras are off. Apparently, there's a whole different person that we don't know. Behind the cameras, I guess he's this really wonderful, caring, sensitive guy who reads poetry and rocks babies and gets on the phone and gives loving comfort to all sorts of people with maladies. Boy, he's just the sweetest guy in the world, I guess. But only when the cameras are off. We don't see this. It's funny how we never see that. And you got all the regular crap from Pence. Talked a lot about policing and law enforcement. Didn't even toss out the bad apple bone. Wouldn't even admit that there's a bad apple here and there. And it wouldn't even admit that. A lot of sappy patriotism. It had a real 1950s vibe to it. And also this misogynist, weird, creepy kind of stuff, like referring to the flag as Old Glory and all she represents. That's just I don't know. Am I wrong to find that weird and creepy, to call a flag she? And a lot of stuff about our way of life. Again, it's just cringy and creepy and had a 50s vibe and had a white supremacy undertone. And it was all just so gross and horrible. And then closes out. Orange Menace shows up at the end of Pence's speech to steal his thunder. Everybody's clapping for Mike. Let me come out and take his applause. And then country singer Trace Atkins comes out and sings the national anthem in the lowest key I've ever heard. He sang it in the key of D. I checked it out. I have never heard anyone sing the national anthem. Oh, say, can you see? But, I mean, it was low. It was low. I guess it sounded all right. He didn't need a auto-tune, so good for him. He sang it a cappella. All right. Well, I promised I'd get through the whole rest of the convention here. We've got a little bit of time. Let me get through the final night. To save time here, we're going to do a reverse fact check. They just lie constantly. Everything out of their mouths is a lie. Everything, 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 everything. So we're going to do a reverse fact check, meaning I went into last night looking for times when they actually tell the truth. And I thought, okay, well, I'll just make note of that. Those will be my highlights. So the rules for the reverse fact check. First, it has to be true, but it doesn't count if they use the fact to lie or distort about something else. For example, if they said the sky is blue, well, that's true. But if they said the sky is blue, which proves climate change is a hoax. So if they do that, then it doesn't count. If they use something that's true to relate to or justify another one of their lies. Also, generalities, platitudes don't count. And there's tons of those. A whole lot of that. Okay, so very quickly, final night, night 4. The first reverse fact check of the night. Mitch McConnell said the stakes have never been higher. Absolutely right. I agree. Also, he said Democrats wanted to make the District of Columbia the 51st state. And also that's true. And he said it like it was a bad thing. In fact, it was funny. He came right out and said why it's a bad thing. Well, they're just going to have 2 more Democratic senators. These guys, they don't even hide it anymore. If the population warrants having representation, I won't get into all that thing. But yeah, they just say it right out loud, stuff like that now. It's crazy. Another reverse fact check. They did a whole video about how sports are good. I don't know why they did that. I agree. Sports are great. Sports are fun. And that was a lead into a guy named Dana White. You may know he's the president of UFC, Ultimate Fighting. What is that? Ultimate Fighting Championship? But he did a thing about prioritizing sports, especially in regard to COVID. He was all excited because that was the Orange Menace's one of his primary concerns. Oh, we have to have sports back. And if you remember, UFC was the first sport, I'll put that in quotation marks, that came back with live audiences. The AG of Utah talked about sex trafficking, which I thought was kind of odd, about how sex trafficking is such a big priority for the Orange Menace. And yet he wishes Ghislaine Maxwell well. I wish her well. I wish her well. So that was kind of an odd little moment. Another president of the Police Benevolent Association of New York City, so another cop union, and he did it right in front of a Blue Lives Matter flag, you know, the blue line flag. And again, we're kind of rushing through all of this tonight. I don't have got time to take any deep dives, but do a little research on your own if you haven't already on that blue line flag and understand why that is. That sits right along with the MAGA hat and the Confederate flag as racist symbols of our time. The blue line flag. Yeah, if you think the blue line flag is innocuous, it's not. It ranks right there with the Confederate flag as a racist symbol. Do your research on that, and maybe we'll talk about it at some point. Remind me. More lies about crime from Rudy Giuliani, but I said we're not going to waste our time with fact-checking. That would take hours. They just lied about everything. But the moment when they really jumped the shark, okay, last night was the night they jumped the shark. There was this video, this completely over-the-top video about China and how we're just going to be destroyed, just literally destroyed by China, and Biden's in bed with them. And it couldn't have been more over the top with the full da-da-da kind of music and all the little tricks of cinematography and video advertising, the evil silhouettes and the black and white footage and the quick cuts and the ominous music and this dastardly voiceover. Yeah, the China video really went over the top. And I thought, okay, it's official. We've jumped the shark. And they didn't disappoint. They kept flying over the shark now then for the rest of the night. It just went totally off the boards. Criminal justice reform. Yeah, they did more about that. Yeah, Alice Johnson is kind of the poster person for this. She was the one you may remember from the news when it happened that she came to the attention of the Orange Menace through Kim Kardashian. So, yeah, if you have a celebrity come into the Oval Office, yeah, you're going to get some attention. Alice Johnson, nobody thought it was a bad idea that her sentence be commuted. She was in jail for way too long for a nonviolent offense. Yeah, so commuting her sentence was a good thing. But, yeah, Kim Kardashian, have her on your side when you have a reality TV star in the White House. And again, as I said before, he was against the bill at first, had to be talked into it by Kim Kardashian and Ivanka and Sean Hannity. Okay, so let's get down to it now. Final hours of the big 4-day extravaganza. Now we have Ivanka. She's live. She's at the White House. No masks, no social distancing. This huge audience. They got 1,500 people crammed into the South Lawn. And they've got the White House all pimped out. Again, we're not going to take a deep dive into this, but the whole Hatch Act thing, using the people's house, a sacred spot for democracy, for America. This is your public space. It's sacrosanct. So this is just completely in your face, complete and utter disrespectful disregard for the rule of law, namely the Hatch Act, for fairness, for American tradition, to use public space that belongs to all Americans and turn it into a convention hall for a partisan event of this magnitude. You can't minimize this. You can't downplay this. It's the stuff of autocrats. It's the stuff of fascism, of authoritarianism. It can't be overstated how completely inappropriate and insulting to the spirit of America. Really genuinely disturbing. So Ivanka comes out, does what you'd expect her to do. She's very good. You know, she's had all the classes. She speaks very well. She really gave a wonderful presentation. In a reverse fact check, the line of the night, the line of the whole convention, the line maybe of the whole political season that history books are going to take note of. Washington has not changed Donald Trump. Donald Trump has changed Washington. Yep, that's the line. That is the line, a great line. In our reversed fact check, it's absolutely true. I agree. And it's also the moment when I was more depressed than I had been since election night of 2016. At that point, I'm just looking at what's going on here thinking, yeah, you know what? This might just be over. This guy's going to win. I'm proud to be an American. At least I know I'm free. So we hear this song again, the anthem, the theme song of the Orange Menace. And out he comes, hand in hand with Melania. You know, the entrance was weird. He wasn't smiling at all. He looked it was odd. I don't know what the deal was. Everybody's clapping for him, and he's not smiling. He looks like sad, nervous. I wasn't sure what the deal was. Did Melania just say something mean to you backstage before you walked out? But he was not smiling. He looked really uncomfortable. It was kind of odd. And then he stood there for the longest time, and they all just kind of looked at each other while the song finished. It was pretty weird. All right, so here it is, the ultimate moment we've all been waiting for. And early in his speech, which was very much a teleprompter speech last night, he said... he said this. He said, I profoundly accept this nomination for President of the United States. What? Profoundly? I profoundly accept this nomination for... I don't think that word means what you think it means. And okay, the speech was all the pundits seemed to agree, and definitely I noticed it as well. Speech was very low energy. I'm not sure where it was going. It was just a pretty bad speech. Reading off the teleprompter. Well, I guess that's why he doesn't like to read off the teleprompter, and that's pretty much all he was doing. Not really ad-libbing at all. But it did heat up when they started talking about immigration. Starts talking about immigration, and, you know, this is his favorite thing. And he calling out border agents, you know, stand up and take a bow. And everybody claps for the border agents. And he did, and then he ad-libs for the first time. Oh, everybody loves our law enforcement. Oh, another big applause line. Now he's feeling it. And for the next half an hour or so, he's doing pretty well. He's got some energy going. Yeah, you heard me right, half an hour. The whole thing was over an hour. And that middle half hour, he had something going. And so, okay, now he can really get into his full white supremacy mode. And he's feeling good. And again, of course, this crowd of 1,500 people, lots of crowd shots again, cameras always going back to him, lots of applause lines, and once again, 100% white. They did find one black guy when he said the line, quote, I have done more for African Americans since Abraham Lincoln. You've probably heard him say that before. I've done more for African Americans than any other president since Abraham Lincoln. And right there, the camera goes to a black guy on that one line. So, pretty cringy. Yeah, they did that. Oh, a reversed fact check with explanation. He mentioned, when talking about COVID, the case fatality rate. He was very careful to use that term. The case fatality rate is one of the lowest. And this was the little trick, the little lie he tried to get away with in that interview with Axios, where he's creating this percentage when you divide the number of deaths into the number of total cases. Nobody uses that statistic. In comparing statistics, it's a per capita rate, death relative to the country's population. And there we are very, 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 very high. So his numbers were correct, but the fact that he was using that case fatality rate number is his little trick. Ooh, very tricky. And it's one of those things where smart people and pundits know what he's doing, but all the dumb people who are going to vote for him, really works. It really works on them. And at this point, that's when my depression hit its very worst low. I thought, okay, it's just over. We officially live in a fascist, Orwellian, authoritarian, white supremacist state cult. Because now he's well into the strongest part of his speech. People are digging it. He's having a great time. It's all vile and horrible and racist, and they've jumped the shark several times. And then when you think at that point, when I'm at my lowest and he's at his highest, and they're having a great time and everybody's yelling and applauding, I think, well, that's probably, he's coming up to a crescendo and a big finish here. But then he fell back into that low energy read from the teleprompter thing for another 15 minutes. It was really weird. So that's how it ended. So just to close out, one final reverse fact check. Quote from the speech: "This is the most important election in the history of our country." This is the most important election in the history of our country. In our reverse fact check, that is absolutely true. No doubt about it. And then I'll leave you with this question. They spent all week creating this fictional country, all these fictional achievements, fictional Democrats, fictional Joe Biden. They just created this huge fiction. And most importantly, a fictional Trump. They created this narrative. They completely invented this character of what he is. And for the most part, he stuck with it in his big speech. So he didn't blow it. He didn't blow their cover. But my question is, I think we should start a pool. How long will it take him? How long will it take him to completely blow that out of the water and do something outrageous with a tweet? Something. Because, he does it at least a couple times a week, sometimes several times a week, sometimes a couple times a day. He's going to say or do something that blows that whole fictional character right out of the water. And it's going to happen today or tomorrow or next week. It's going to happen. So I say we start a pool to see when it happens, because it's going to happen. We have 68 days to Election Day. Just try to imagine, without getting too depressed, what can happen in 68 days. Oh, I got to keep laughing or I'm going to break down into tears, I tell you. All right, I'm too close to it. It just ended last night. I'm going to take a nice long weekend. I'm going to turn off the news. I'm just going to turn on my music and read a book and try to talk myself off the ledge. All right, there it is. You don't have to watch it anymore. You probably weren't watching it anyway, and that's why I wanted to fill you in on everything, tell you what you needed to know. I'm Charles Purcell. This has been The Log. Happy Friday. I'll talk to you on Monday.